Are you a codependent or a communal narcissist? Why some narcissistic abuse victims avoid recovery. Stay tuned for the whole video because I'm going to go through a whole list of stuff. We're going to take a look at this potential issue, at this whole list of what a communal narcissist is and how it connects with codependence. I'm going to give you some typical communal narcissistic codependent verbal interactions I experience a lot. So stay tuned. So what is a communal narcissist? What does it have to do with codependence? So I would say, again, I think a lot of people have a lot of misunderstanding about a lot of stuff, including professionals. Bear in mind, of course, my understanding comes from extensive personal experience in recovery and, whatever limited experience I have with, narcissists and borderlines and all that. I am not a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I don't know everything there is to know. But I do know some things that a lot of professionals don't. And I think sometimes I can fill in the blanks. So, as time goes on, I'm always happy to admit when I'm wrong and move things around. I don't need to be right. I'm only interested in my own personal health and recovery and in, doing this 12-step work, helping others find their own healing and recovery. So that's what I do. So, if you come onto this channel, bear in mind, I have to tell you, one of the most difficult mindsets to deal with is the codependent mindset. For instance, you deal with somebody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict. Their life will be on the line. They might die within days or weeks if they don't change. And so they have a willingness to do whatever the hell is necessary. And they have a willingness to listen to really hard, painful truths. Because whatever that is, isn't as bad as what they've just been through and what could happen if they don't get help. That is not the case with codependence. Codependents are the most stubborn when it comes to healing and recovery. And their mindset is the most difficult to achieve recovery in because they can survive it miserably for decades. It might end up killing them. It might end up giving them cancer or diabetes or heart disease or, an aneurysm. That might happen. I mean that. I'm dead serious about that. There are people that have that, and it's years and years and years of living with this malignant but not, completely insane lifestyle where they're just miserable and they're addicted to it and they can't get out of it. And, it's a long, slow, painful, ugly life and death. So it's my experience. I much prefer, if I'm working 12 steps, I much prefer working with somebody who's got alcoholism or drug addiction because they're ready. They're ready to do anything and they're willing to listen to the hard truth. Narcissists, Freudian slip. Codependents, if they're just codependents, they're just the most difficult to deal with. They're enormously pain in the ass. They're extremely resistant. They have amazing abilities to resist and warp their response and their reality, because again, their illness, so to speak, isn't immediately lethal. So they can stay addicted to it. So anyway, but I want to make something clear. We're going to be talking about communal narcissism, which I would put in the category of a narcissistic personality disorder, a mental illness. So what is the difference between somebody who has a mental illness and somebody who just, say, is a chronic codependent? So somebody who has a mental illness means that they live in a delusion. They live in a false reality, and they have psychosis, meaning that at some level of their consciousness, there is at least one tiny little room where reality doesn't exist. and they are disconnected from objective reality. Objective reality will hit them maybe in just one tiny little area, and they will see something completely different. Their defense mechanism will be such that they will, literally, if you put the color red, they'll see blue. Everybody else will see red, but they'll see blue. That's psychosis. You've dealt with this. If you've been with a borderline, you've dealt with their psychosis. When they tell you that you were planning their demise and you cast a demonic spell on them and, attached things to their brain in their sleep. When they say stuff like that, you know that they're not in contact with reality. And you realize it's psychotic, it's psychosis. But of course they don't. So that's psychosis. When objective reality hits you and becomes something completely different. Neurosis, on the other hand, is what somebody who doesn't have a personality disorder or a real verifiable mental illness. And the difference is that they know what reality is, but they don't like it. They're in a constant state of cognitive dissonance, where there will be a part of them that's trying to pull them into a psychosis. My borderline loves me. It'll be okay tomorrow. She's just sleeping with my meth addict cousin in Vegas because she's just having a hard time, and it'll be all okay. And when I come back and fix her, then she'll love me forever. And then the other part of you goes, why are you doing this to yourself? Why she's destroying you. Why am I doing this? I can't stop. I'm addicted. You have that cognitive dissonance. You're in a state of neurosis. We could make the argument that the non-disordered person in that state is in a much worse state than even the mentally ill person, because the mentally ill person can convince themselves of a false reality, whereas the person in neurosis can't. They're in that constant state of cognitive dissonance. And this is why you can have somebody who's a narcissist who's healthy their whole life, whereas guaranteed the neurotic codependent will very likely have physical illnesses. Borderlines have it too, because they're very codependent as well. They have physical illnesses that won't go away. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in the weeds. The point I'm trying to make is that if you are a codependent, you can be cured of the main issue that is causing you all of the severe trauma. If you have a personality disorder, you can get some recovery, but you'll never be cured, at least as the way that the world is now, unless we go through this spiritual transformation, which I and other people are talking about. Hint, hint, go check out my other channel. Then things are different. But if the world stays the way it is, that's how I see things. So we're going to be talking about a very deceptive form of narcissistic personality disorder, which I have been fooled by. I would love to get, the case study that I would love to share with you. I would love to share it with you, but I don't want to badmouth another person. Because I know specifically somebody, I've had personal experience with somebody who I now have come to believe is a severely guarded communal narcissist. And they have no idea. They're completely clueless of it. Anyway, so we're going to get into what the difference is. So communal narcissism and codependence, they're almost indistinguishable. And it's important to understand that if you are a codependent, it's very likely that you have communal narcissistic tendencies. And I've made videos about how destructive codependents are. And you're not, just because you're on the quote victim end of the narcissistic abuse relationship, doesn't change the fact that you are fully responsible for that, and that you have very destructive and abusive behaviors yourself. But it's overshadowed by the malignance of the narcissistic abuser. Their abuse is so over the top that your abuse ends up getting lost, unless you are interacting with people who aren't codependent or aren't mentally ill. Then they know. This is what they call a Karen. They know how abusive you can be. You don't. You're clueless of it. So again, before we get into anything, if you have been in a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist and you have suffered traumatic injury to that, then there's only one cure. I'm here to tell you that therapy by itself will not cure you. Watching videos will not cure you. The only thing that will give you lasting cure from the damage of that narcissistic relationship is to work the 12 steps with a sponsor and then sponsor somebody else. I used to suggest Codependence Anonymous because it was the 12-step group known for codependence. But the truth is, any 12-step group will work as long as you work your issues with your borderline or narcissist X in the 12 steps. The 12-step group that I now recommend for codependents who don't have other addictions is ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. I put a link below. If you want to heal, I'm going to tell you the exact method of healing. If you follow my suggestions to the letter, I guarantee you a cure of that trauma from that relationship. You'll still have other stuff to work through, but that stuff will get cured and your life will get better. It's very simple. You click on the link, ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Don't waste your time reading all the stuff on the website. Don't worry about that. Find out where the meetings are. Go to a meeting, a Zoom meeting. Doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the world. Go to a Zoom meeting as soon as possible that day, today. Stop watching this video and go to a meeting right now. Set it up. And then at that meeting, raise your little virtual hand and say, I am new and I need a sponsor to walk me through the steps. And then somebody will reach out to you. You'll get some contact information. Tell them that I told you to ask them, have you worked all 12 steps? And if they say yes, you say, great. Can you please walk me through the steps? And then you follow their instructions to the letter. When you've worked through all 12 steps, you then turn around and sponsor somebody else in the exact same way you did. Those are the exact parameters. Don't deviate. I just made a video about somebody who deviated, who claimed, maybe they actually believed it, that they had followed my advice on sponsorship, and it turns out that they didn't. Now, if you go to a group, like if you go to Coda, this is why I don't recommend Coda anymore. If you go to Coda and they say you have to go to 6 meetings before you can get a sponsor, say thank you very much and go find somebody who will sponsor you. If you're in a group and nobody will sponsor you, leave that group and find a group that will sponsor you. Thing I like about PPG Recovered Codependence is that they're big on that. They will sponsor you immediately. That's their first instinct, which is how the 12 steps have always been. It's what works. So if you don't do that, I can't guarantee you anything. You're on your own. All right, having said that, let's get into this. I've already gone into the weeds too much already. So, codependent or communal narcissist. Why some narcissistic abuse victims avoid recovery. And what I'm the main theme here is that I'm here to tell you that if you are somebody who is codependent, and you know that you have been narcissistically abused, you're deeply damaged, and you stubbornly resist getting cured, there's a chance you might have some communal narcissist tendencies, because that is narcissistic to want to stay in the abuse. Let's get into it. So what is communal narcissist? So you know what a narcissist is, the difference between a narcissist and somebody who's, for instance, just codependent. A codependent doesn't suffer from a mental illness. They know what reality is. They don't like it. They're neurotic, so they're in a state of cognitive dissonance, trying to talk themselves into being deluded, but they can never really pull it off. So but they're not technically insane, even though they look like it. The narcissist, on the other hand, has a severe mental illness to the point where their ability to see objective reality is gone. And they may have difficulty having true empathy, true connection. They live in there's at least a part of them that lives in a fantasy world that is not real. And they live by feeding off of others on an emotional level, right? So those are it's not the perfect definition, but those are the differences. Somebody who doesn't have a personality disorder can be cured, but will have to work through it for the rest of their life. Somebody who has a personality disorder cannot be cured, but if they find the right therapy, they can tolerate and keep their symptoms under control. So a communal narcissist is somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder on whatever the scale is, somewhere on the scale, who gets their value, their narcissistic supply comes from being the healer. And so they need to continuously be healing others. Now, there are communal narcissists who are malignant, very clearly. There are communal narcissists who are, and so, one of the main, issues that you see online, most people, when they use the word narcissist, what they're talking about is a malignant psychopath. This is somebody who has no compassion, has no awareness of others, who consciously knows that they are deceiving, tricking, destroying, hurting, devaluing, harming, feeding. They're conscious of it. Most people will say that. And if you go online on YouTube, there's this false scale. It's a completely made up scale, made up by perhaps communal narcissists, but definitely codependents. The super empath, which is just another word for at least chronic codependence, if not communal narcissism. So the super empath is somebody who will say that there's a scale. On one end is the narcissist, and on the other end is the empath. And so they will say that they have empathy for others. They feel other people's feelings, right? You've heard this. You might see yourself this way. Now, the difference between an empath and the super empath communal narcissist is that the actual super empath conflates sympathy with empathy. Somebody who has empathy feels within the other person, which means this. You see somebody who's in a lot of pain. You can look at them and you can tell, wow, that person's in a lot of pain. I feel sorry for them. I wish they could find what they're looking for. But you yourself are not damaged by that. You yourself don't feel the need to fix them. You allow them to be who they are. You don't need to run in there. You don't go into a state of panic if you can't go and fix their feelings. You have your own feelings. You may be happy and comfortable and also be aware that the other person is in pain, and you can completely put yourself in their skin and understand their pain, but it doesn't affect you. That is empathy. That is not what a super empath says. A super empath says, I walk in the room and somebody's pain overwhelms me and I can't tell the difference between me and them, and now I'm feeling their pain. That's called sympathy. Same feeling. Pathos means emotion. Sim means same. Sympathy means you have the exact same emotion. It means you can't regulate your own emotions. Other people's emotions have the ability to change your feelings. That is not empathy. That is severe codependence, at the very least. So those of you super empaths out there who think that you're either a malignant narcissist or a super empath can also be a malignant narcissist. How do you think that narcissists are so able to know what it is you're thinking and feeling, and get in there and explain and make you feel like they know you better than anybody else. They can have sympathy for you. They don't have empathy. So this can be going on at the same time. They have no empathy for you, and at the same time, they're completely sympathetic with you. So this is where even psychologists screw this up. Psychologists, again, some psychologists have no effing clue what the hell they're talking about. Because they will say, oh, yeah, there's empathy and sympathy, and they can't make the difference. They can't tell the difference. And they'll say somebody who's healthy has empathy and a narcissist doesn't have any empathy. And that's just not true. Those are generalizations that aren't true. And it's not true in the case of the communal narcissist. The communal narcissist can be filled with empathy, and true compassion. They can be filled with it, and they're still abusive in an extremely nuanced, undercover way. The communal narcissist is the epitome of, again, there's another phrase that people really love. What do they call that? It'd be like a fake narcissist. Sometimes when I get talking, I get too many thoughts and I can't remember phrases. What is that phrase? It's the something narcissist. Anyway, it'll come to me. It's the narcissist that's pretending not to be a narcissist. Right? So communal narcissists are that. They are secret narcissists. Covert, there it is. I knew it would come to me. Covert narcissist. Now, most people, when they use the word covert narcissist, what they are really talking about is a malignant psychopathic narcissist, which is somebody who knows they're trying to destroy you, but they pretend, they put on a false face of love and compassion, and people think that's a covert narcissist because they're hiding their narcissism. That's what all narcissists do. Malignant narcissists, unless they're in jail, and they get their value by being the toughest, baddest, loco on the block or whatever. All narcissists are covert. So again, this is a childish interpretation. A true covert narcissist is somebody where their narcissism is hidden even to them. Borderlines. The people who get the most upset with me on this channel, well, actually, the people who get the most upset with me are codependents who don't want to recover. But the second people who get the most angry with me are borderlines, because they insist that they are filled with empathy. And again, they conflate empathy with sympathy. They conflate empathy with projection, because true empathy doesn't stop just because you're not getting what you want. True empathy doesn't cease the moment you start feeling threatened, because that's what borderlines do. Borderlines will say, I'm not a narcissist. I have empathy. And I go, yeah, until you don't. And then it gets turned off like that, and then you act abusively. And then they come up with excuses, which means they don't have empathy. So a covert narcissist, so borderline personality disorder is, I would call it a form of covert narcissism. Covert psychopathy even, because they're not even aware of their psychopathic tendencies. They dissociate and forget when they go psychopathic on you. So communal narcissists are covert in their narcissism, meaning it is hidden to everybody, even themselves. Now, if you're wondering if you're a communal covert narcissist, you probably aren't. Because I'm thinking, there's one person I know. I knew for long. I wish I could give you a case study, but I would be giving so many details, it would be obvious who I was talking about, and I don't want to badmouth anybody. I still love the person, even though I don't have any connection with them anymore. And I feel badly for the guy. I mean, he can recover if he truly wanted to, but he's got an addiction to his source of supply, and he's unwilling to let it go. And unfortunately, he's damaging himself and a lot of other people as a result. So the covert, the communal narcissist will be a covert narcissist who gets their supply by being the savior, the healer, the guru. They could be a doctor, like a very successful doctor. They can be a therapist. They can be a spiritual teacher, a healer. They're probably a combination of all of those things. The person I knew really was a combination of all those things. And they can be extremely healing and beneficial to many people, especially if you have short-term interaction with them. You might have short-term interaction with them for a few months or a couple of years, and as a result, you might actually get tremendously healed as a result of that. They might try and keep you in their circle. Maybe they're not successful. You go somewhere else, whatever. But it's not that they're so abusive. They might even do work for free. Again, the malignant narcissist is going to con you out of your money. These people may not con you out of your money. They may be incredibly benevolent and like the Buddha. In fact, many of them might be Buddhists or, very spiritual people, or at least they believe they are, present themselves that way. So that's some things that are communal narcissists. So the myth that all narcissists are malignant psychopaths. Again, we talked about that, but the communal narcissist could be a malignant psychopath and still be a communal narcissist because they get their supply from being the healer or the teacher or the guru or the cult leader. So some cult leaders are incredibly malignant and abusive, but not all of them are. Many of them have empathy. Many of them have love. Many of them can be great friends, be very successful in the world. They might, they might not dissociate, the way that, they might not have that kind of trauma. They will have been traumatized at some point, and we'll talk about, who the best candidates are for. At least in my experience of the kind of narcissist I'm talking about is the communal narcissist that is not malignant. So that's the person I'm talking about. The communal narcissist that is not malignant. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on, and that's what I'm experiencing with a lot of people as I'm doing this. I run into a lot of people who clearly are codependents, and at the very least, they have communal narcissistic tendencies. In fact, every untreated codependent has communal narcissistic tendencies. But yeah, on the extreme scale of codependence, you have the communal narcissist or the borderline. So how are communal narcissists created? Borderline mother. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ways that they can be created, but one really good way to create a communal narcissist is if they have a borderline mother. There's just what'll end up happening is that person will be programmed, or at least in some cases, maybe not all, certainly not all, but in some cases, this person will be absolutely programmed to be the fixer of the incurable trauma victim. They will seek them out. They very likely will be attracted to and perhaps marry an untreated borderline. The covert chronic codependence needs incurable victims. So again, in this state, I'm going to give you a scenario which I can tell you is absolutely true in reality, but for this case, we're going to say it's we're going to talk about it hypothetically. So a hypothetical scenario would be somebody who's a child to a borderline mother, who then learns to become a very powerful healer as a result of what? Trying to help regulate. So, trying to regulate the borderline mother. They grow up. They're not malignant narcissist. They're not borderline. And they become aware that they need healing. They might find themselves becoming addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, something like that. And then what will happen is their pain will drive them, because they're a fixer, they're a healer, it will drive them into some kind of recovery, perhaps even 12-step recovery, and into therapy. And so they will learn and they will want to go deep into the emotional unconscious of themselves and other people. And they will believe that they have achieved some level of recovery. They might even be, they might be grandiose, but they also might be very humble. In fact, that might be their thing. So in the particular hypothetical case I'm thinking of, this person becomes a therapist and a healer, starts out very grandiose, and then ends up becoming a doormat. They become so compliant and they become so humble. They find themselves in some kind of religion, like Buddhism would be the perfect one, where you are of compassion and always forgiving. And they conflate that with their untreated codependence, which is actually communal narcissism. So they get their value from being the doormat that never retaliates and never stands up for themselves. And the grandiosity isn't I'm better than you. The grandiosity is I have more healing power than anybody else, meaning they will do something. There will be something in their personal lives which will be hypocritical. In other words, in their healing profession, they will say, you should never stay with somebody that's abusive, go and be yourself, and blah, blah, blah. And they will recommend that you don't stay married, or that you allow yourself to move on, find real love, all of that, while they themselves are in an abusive relationship. But the difference is they will somehow either say that they've reached a level, or they will give off the feeling that they have the ability to do something the average person can't do, like stay married to an abusive, untreated borderline. Something like that. That would be a good example. I've seen this type of scenario, this almost exactly. And I bought into it. When I was with my borderline ex, I was with her for less than a year. And it almost killed me. And I mean that. I could feel that physically I was going to get the big C word if I didn't get out. I could feel it in my body. And I was wanting to delete myself. I was in so much pain. And that was within months I was in that state. So I got out. I got out because it was clear to me that my life was in danger. Forget about my mental state, my emotional state. My life was in danger. So I got the hell out. And this is how I started, working the steps specifically on that relationship. And that's how I know what the cure is. So the communal narcissist will give the same advice I would give. Go work the steps. But they'll say, go to therapy and do this and do that. They'll have excellent advice, but they themselves won't follow it. They will stay in the relationship. They might even create some group where they are helping people. They might have a therapy group. They might have a spiritual group, a meditation group. They will create some kind of a cult. Now, it might be a full-on hardcore cult, and it might just be group therapy, where you're technically able to leave, but there will be this guilt. There will be this vibe of, if you leave, you won't be part of the special people who are getting the healing, and they will give off this belief that to be truly healed is to allow yourself to continuously be abused, but somehow not let it bother you. It is the fantasy of all codependence that they have the ability to tolerate the abuse, but their grandiosity is that they're above it all. Normal people can't tolerate this level of abuse, but because of my spirituality or because of my awareness or because of my special nature or my Buddha-like nature or whatever it is, they can do it. And they might even have an inability to truly diagnose severe mental illness. Like in particular, this one person I'm thinking of. This one person, very knowledgeable all the way around, but when it came to BPD, this person would argue against the idea of it being a mental illness and would say that it was merely, that BPD was merely a set of behaviors. It happened to be he was still, living with his borderline ex-wife who was living in his house with her new boyfriend. Just to give you an example, that's just the kind of craziness that will go on. There will be some red flag that will pop up. So let's keep going. So there will be covert chronic codependence, and they will need to have incurable victims around them. Even if they're healing and curing lots of people, very likely there's going to be followers that will never get healed. And here's the thing, it's very likely they will never really push them to go get healing because they get off. Their supply is reliving the trauma of somebody who's got just a little bit of knowledge and but won't actually take the action to heal. That is their supply. They need that. So if you get really close with these people, what will happen is you'll get pulled into an inner circle of people who are going deeper than everybody else. And what you'll find out is that these are people that aren't healing. And this is where they get their supply. They get their supply off watching people who just won't heal. But they will still, they'll still be the all-loving, all-accepting, but they will put themselves at this grandiose position of, I'm above all that. It doesn't affect me. This is an example. Of course, this isn't going to be everyone, but these are some things that you can. Sounds like a codependent, doesn't it? There's a lot of codependents I've run into on this channel who act like that. Certainly not you if you're listening. So there'll be covert, chronic codependence. They need incurable victims. Unlike malignant narcissists, communal narcissists are consciously loving and sincere. This is important. Remember, their narcissism is covert, meaning it's in their unconscious. They're clueless of it. They will do things to insulate their cluelessness of it. And if you watch them long enough, you'll see that. But it's not like the malignant narcissist that's easy to spot. It's clear that they're abusive. They will be, 80% saint, and there will be 20% communal narcissist abuse. And their abuse isn't overt. They won't attack. Some of them won't. They won't attack you. They won't devalue you. They'll be your best friend. They'll be very kind to you. But then there will be one thing that comes out that they say that just won't hit you right. And they will keep a circle of people around them that never really truly get healing or recovery. And they'll need that. But they will be consciously loving and sincere. And like malignant narcissists, the communal narcissists are unconsciously abusive. So it may take a long time for it to come out, but you will feel it. You will feel something isn't right. But they will always gaslight you out of it, and they will have perfect, and it won't be like really bad gaslighting that, the malignant narcs do. It'll be really good gaslighting that if you read it on paper, it'll be like, yeah, this is flawlessly accurate. I can't deny that. But then there will be that one thing that they do or that one thing that they say or that one behavior that'll just hit you like, ugh. But the rest of them will be so spotless and clean, you'll be like, this is confusing me. So you'll have some cognitive dissonance that will always be sort of flashing red, that something isn't right. Their narcissistic supply is gained in healing and spiritual professions. We already talked about that. They get their narcissistic supply from cult-like groups of wounded people. So, yeah, that's the thing. It's a group that you won't have an opportunity to leave. I mean, even if you're free to leave, there will be this guilt about it. So, I used to, on my other channel here, I take apprentices, which means the people that work with me on a regular basis. Now, I used to have this thing that I made them go through, which is if they wanted to meet my apprentice, they had to agree to a long-term commitment that they're going to work with me for long-term. And then I had these, and they're good. They're like what therapists use. I would say, listen, you can't leave unless you talk to me first. We have to take a look together to see, why you're leaving. Are you leaving because of your unconscious resistance? Or, is there a reason to leave? And if somebody left, I said, if you're leaving, you can't come back as an apprentice. This is a long-term commitment. And because of my experience with the communal narcissist who did the same thing, even though they had, they had more sort of, reason to do that because of their profession. When I saw that, and I saw that I had been part of that, I've now gotten rid of that. So if somebody wants to work with me and they only want to work with me 1 month, I've got a group that I lead here in my interdimensional meditation. I have a live Zoom group. Go to thunderwizard.com if you're interested. And it's only for people who are doing the kinds of meditations that we're doing, but I don't tell anybody how often they have to come, or people want to leave, they want to come once every 6 months. If they want to come once and leave, if somebody wants to work with me and then they leave and they say, I want to go somewhere else, I go, okay, have fun. I don't do that anymore because of that experience. I no longer try to get in there and make people feel guilty for, it's their choice. If somebody wants to work with me, they can work with me. If they want to leave, they can leave, and they're responsible for how much they commit or how much they don't commit. So that's one thing I learned from him. And maybe I'm overreacting, but that was such a subtle, destructive experience for me. The guilt of, if you leave, you can leave. I'm not chaining you to the chair. You can leave, but you'll be walking away, and we really love you. That guilt, that's a communal narcissist thing, cult-like. There will be some cult-like aspect to it. So deep-seated narcissism allows for regression and recovery. So they will. Here's another thing that I do. And in fact, I got crap from my ex-communal narc for doing this, but now in hindsight, I'm glad I did. If I work with somebody, like I don't work with anybody on this channel because I give you the directions I give you are the most direct and powerful for your healing. So I don't pretend to, set up some counseling thing for you. Come to me and I'll give you the best narcissist. I don't do that. Because I always end up just telling you to go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org, get a sponsor, and work the steps. Because anything else is secondary. I forgot what I was saying. If I'm working with somebody and I give them specific directions, if they can't do it after 3 or 4 sessions, like in 3 or 4 sessions later, if they can constantly have an excuse about why they weren't able to pull off or do the very simple instructions, then I say, I can't help you. If you're not willing to follow my directions, I can't help you. There's nothing I can do. It's a waste of your time. So come back when you've done the things I've suggested. Come back and I'll work with you again. So a communal narcissist won't do that. They will keep you even if you're not doing the work, and they might guilt you over it, but they actually get off on you not progressing, not doing the work. So you will find that. You will find that there is just this continuous like level of trauma that just nobody really ever gets out of, but there will always be this, pseudo spiritual, talk about this and that and whatever the heck it happens to be about. So there will be deep-seated narcissism allowing for regression in recovery, meaning continuously going backwards and staying, in the group that I was in, there was more than one, but there was one person in particular that had been in that group for 30 years and was worse than they were 30 years ago. And that kind of stuff I couldn't unsee. And every time I tried to bring that to, the person's attention, they would, of course, gasp. They would co-sign the other person's regression. So listen. Here's the thing. In one of the 12-step groups, there's a phrase which is really important, which is, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. So if there's a group of people and they're all working towards, a proven path of growth, and people aren't growing, something's wrong. Something's wrong. In my particular group, to me, if there really was something to the method that was being used, the person who was the most regressed after 30 years would have been among the most healed. You're going to see some healing. You're going to see some progression. So way you're in a communal narcissistic group is if there isn't any real progression, and there's at least one person, or usually one person who sort of is running all of it, and you want their approval. And then lastly, let's see, communal narcs will have a secret source of wounded victim narc supply. I already talked about that, but perfect example is somebody who tells you that you need to be free of these narcissistic abusers and this is what we're at, but then they will actually be married to an untreated narcissist or an untreated borderline or an unsober alcoholic, something like that. There will be some kind of wounded narcissistic abuser that they will continuously be trying to fix or needing to fix or controlling. And then they will seek their supply from the groups that they're supposedly teaching. So the groups that they're teaching, the inner groups, it'll be a secret group of people, not every time, but sometimes, secret group of people that will be getting worse and worse and worse. And they will be orchestrating the craziness, and they'll be feeding off of that. And that will then give them the supply to go to their abuser and be able to tolerate the abuse. Then they'll go back to their group and they'll recreate their abusive situation in the group and feed off of it so that they can go back and still, be the doormat for their abuser. That's just one example. This is, again, I'm using from my personal experience what I saw. All right, so let's now talk about some things. Now, as I said, untreated codependents will have communal narcissistic tendencies. I run into this on this channel and my other channel as well. But on this channel, I run into it all the time. I'm going to give you some examples of some things people say. In fact, somebody just said this not too long ago. So here's some examples. Just checking in. Are you okay? You look tired. You look sad. Have you been sick? Is everything okay? The person who says that believes that they are coming from a state of kindness, of love, of compassion. They have zero understanding that the way it hits the other person is devaluing. Every time I hear that, I feel devalued. Are you okay? They put themselves in this place of. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that that's not an okay thing to say to people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you actually have a friend and they really do, so they look tired, and you say, "Are you okay? You look tired." But this will be under, I will have made a video, like a 2-hour video or an hour video on something. And their response will be, just checking in with you. Are you okay? And I got to tell you, it feels really devaluing when I read it. Because the person is trying to, it is an unconscious way of the person trying to unseat you off of your place of power so that they can take dominance over you. So the person who says this, and there are people that do this, they don't know that, are you okay? You look tired. You look sad. They don't realize that what they're really doing is they're trying to gain dominance over me. Because number one, they're gonna completely disregard and devalue what I've just done. What I've just talked about. I've spent an hour talking about how to heal from whatever. They'll devalue that. They'll completely, totally push that aside and use the comment as an excuse so that they can come in and dominate me. And it makes me believe that it's very likely I've said something that was threatening to them. Something about, recovery that they aren't willing to do, and it was threatening to them. So they can't tolerate that feeling. So the only way they know how to deal with it is to find some way of condescending to you and devaluing, because it's devaluing to just only say something like that in that context. The other feeling that I get from it, and these may all be going at the same time. Again, this is probably happening unconsciously. The person isn't consciously doing it. Again, communal narcissism is a deeply unconscious form of narcissism and codependence. They also may have a strong desire to connect with me personally. Maybe because, out of their codependence or out of their whatever. There's an attraction there that they want to connect to me with. But they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to vulnerably put themselves out and say, you know what, I feel a connection to you, and I'd like to get to know you. They don't know how to do that. The only in that they have with somebody is if they can be the fixer. So even if there's nothing wrong with you, they have to try and hypnotize you into believing that something's wrong with you so that they can come in and fix it. There are people that do this. They will poison their partner so that they can take care of them. And then they get their value of taking care of the other person, but they have to poison them first. They weren't sick. They had to make them sick so that now I can take care of you and control you. This is what I get. I get this all the time. There's other examples I'll give you, but that's one. That's the one I get. And so, when I hear that, it's like that tells me something's wrong. Something's not right. Even if I did look tired, that happens sometimes. I just got through talking for an hour about some really great subject, and you can't talk about that. You have to make some superficial, comment on, are you okay? You look tired. Here's another one. Look at how good I'm doing. I'm not following your suggestions, but I still want your approval while I try to compete with you. I get this a lot as well. People will tell me, in fact, there are some people who are so aggressive in their desire to devalue me because there's something I'm saying or something that I'm doing, and they're completely unconscious of it. At the same time, they want to have the recovery that I talk about. They want to have the healing that I talk about, and or they project themselves into what they think I am, and they want to have whatever they think I am. So they will appeal to my ego. There will be long comments about how amazing my channel is and what I've done and said, which has transformed them, and I could never thank you enough. And then they'll go, but there's this one thing that and then they will either openly or inadvertently admit that they haven't followed my suggestions, but they'll somehow try and say, but I'm doing this and we're on the same level. Just recently somebody volunteered to co-sponsor me. And it came out that they hadn't followed my advice. Whether that was conscious or not, I don't know. So this is another communal narcissistic, typical codependent kind of thing. Look at how good I'm doing. I'm not following your suggestions, but I still want your approval while I try and compete with you. I'll give you, on my other channel, here's a good example. There's one guy that comes onto my channel all the time, constantly, leaves positive, clearly getting some value out of it. And at the same time, every now and then we'll talk about how, we have a past life together and we should hook up sometime. Now, this person hasn't bothered to become an apprentice, hasn't bothered to work with me, hasn't bothered to purchase any of the, many of the meditation teachings and practices and videos that I have, hasn't bothered to interact on any of those levels, but has this feeling that we're, got this past life connection and we need to hook up. But they haven't made any effort to actually, respectfully connect and hook up with me on any level. And this person left a comment that was, again, most of the comments are full of praise and thank you and all of that. They talk about themselves a lot, but in this one comment, it was very clear. This person said, "I haven't done any of your meditations, but I think mine is better," and then went on to talk about the meditation that they do. This person has no idea how badly they just devalued me, and how desperate they are to try and compete with me, and which of course is just all coming from their insecurity. And what a codependently abusive connection. Of course, I haven't responded to that person. If they want to contact me, they would have to follow the protocol. They would have to, reach out as a student in some way. They don't want to do that. But at the same time, they want to bow to my feet while devaluing me at the same time. I've never done any of your meditations, but I think mine is better. Then what are you doing on my channel? I wouldn't spend time on somebody's channel if I had a better method than they did. Communal narcissist codependent behavior. Here's one. "We should get together sometime. I'd love to share stories." Why would I want to do that? That's somebody who gets their value off of dredging up the pain and listening to your pain. This is what was going on with the co-sponsor, dredging up let's share stories and, so people, understandably, I'm talking from my experience, which hits them. They relate to it. And instead of doing their own work, they want to connect with me. And so they just decide that we're going to be friends. Here's another one. "How can I contact you? I want some advice on my BPDX." It's very presumptuous. They just presume that I have nothing better to do but to take time out of my day and talk to some stranger and listen to them talk about their ex and they don't bother to go, can I be some people do. Some people reach out and ask if I will counsel them. And that is a worthwhile thing to ask, but there's no reason to do that, because the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take your money and tell you to go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org and work the steps. And then you don't have to. You'll have a sponsor that you can hang out with and talk with, and it won't cost you anything. So I appreciate people who want to connect with me on that level, but then the people that I'm talking about specifically in this quote are people that wouldn't even consider paying me anything. They just presume that because they feel a connection that they should be able to just hang out with me and, can I call you? No, I don't know you. You can't call me and dump your garbage on me. That's what your sponsor's for. "I agree with 99% of what you say, but here is why you are totally wrong." I get that all the time. I just found I had another email that I haven't been using. It's still active, and I had to look it up. And I looked it up, and there was somebody from this channel who's been spamming me and will go on and on. "I agree about this," and then we'll say, "But you said that about Christians, and you said that about God, and you shouldn't do that. You also shouldn't block people who disagree with you. You're an asshole. I love what you say. Why won't you?" I mean, just obviously crazy. Communal narcissistic codependence. This is the kind of behavior you get from that. So, If you want to avoid that, if you don't want to come off that way, if you don't want to be consciously feeling like you are helpful to people, when in reality you are devaluing them and hurting them and being presumptuous and condescending and narcissistic, if you want to avoid that, I have the cure. Click on the link below, ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Get a sponsor as soon as possible. Work the steps. Be rigorously honest with yourself. And I guarantee you, if you're doing those things, you will become aware of it and you will stop. And people will like you. Here's one of the things that happened with me early on in my 12-step recovery. Now, my conscious thoughts in my mind were very aggressive. I was a very angry, aggressive person. Well, I know, big surprise, right? But I had learned from working the steps and working with my sponsors, how to act in public and how to treat other people. And one of them was to keep my mouth shut. So, if I was around somebody and I wanted to just lay into them, I did the opposite. It wasn't because I was kissing their ass and trying to get their approval. I was doing what's called contrary action. I was doing the exact opposite of what my instincts were. And so this will happen when you work the steps. You'll learn how to do contrary action. Now, what most of you, if you haven't done the steps, what you don't know is that you think your problem is that you have these uncomfortable feelings that you have to change or fix. And that's not true. What you first need to change is your behavior. And then if you do the internal work, you will learn how to tolerate the feelings and or learn how to change them, replace them. And you'll get, good feelings come from good actions. Negative feelings come from negative actions and, of course, the craziness inside. So if you want to learn how to do contrary action, you got to work the steps. But what happened with me is I would have all these aggressive, judgmental thoughts and, and other kinds of stuff. But, one time this person said, I really like being around you because I really feel safe with you. And I really feel like you care about me. If they had any idea what was going through my head, they wouldn't have said that. And it shocked me because I thought everybody knew what was going on inside my head. That those feelings, that everybody could feel that. And they didn't care about how I was feeling, they cared about how I treated them. Now again, I'm not talking about kissing somebody's ass for supply. Just talking about learning how to act as though you have compassion, true empathy. This is what borderlines need to learn how to do. Learn how to, you want to split on them and slash their tires because you think they're out to steal your marrow and destroy you and haunt you and infect you with demons. But you act towards them as if you care about them and want them to be happy and you don't want anything from them. Then people will love you. They will love the way that you treat them. And more people would say that after I was doing contrary action and working the steps. People would say, you know what, Mike I just really like being around him. He's just a really kind, loving, helpful person. And I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But I was taking the actions that my sponsors told me to take. They told me how to act in public and how to treat other people. I didn't know how to do that. Codependents don't know how to do that either. Again, the example of, I'm just checking in. Are you okay? You look tired. That's somebody who doesn't know how to interact with somebody in a conscious, loving, compassionate way. That is somebody who doesn't know how to experience their own feelings of love for another person and say, just want to let you know how much I appreciate you. That could have been that. Or just checking in. Are you okay? You look tired. That could have been somebody trying to say, I really appreciate you. But the only way they know how to get a hook into somebody is if they devalue them and find something they can fix about them. And I tell you, everybody feels that. They feel devalued. If it's also a test. just checking in. Are you okay? You look tired, sad. That is a test to see how codependent you are. Because if you're codependent, your response is going to meet their request, because their request is, I want to either find or create some wound in you so that I will get a feeling of value by fixing it. Will you create that wound for me? And even if you aren't tired, you'll go, yeah, it's been a tough day. Yeah, I've been tired. Oh, I feel so sorry for you. Yeah, feel sorry for me, even though you didn't need it. And then next thing you know, you are tired. So it's all those things. And it's also a test to see if I can create a codependent relationship with you. So if a lot of you guys have left comments on here kissing my ass and trying to make me feel good, and I don't respond in the way that you think and you're shocked, that's why. It's because you don't realize it, but I'm mirroring back to you your unconscious codependent, communal narcissistic behavior. Because again, I'm not here to get anything from anybody. I don't need you to like me or not like me. I don't need anything. The only thing I care about is if you do the work to heal yourself. And then I hope that you never come back to the channel. I hope you get so healthy you never have to come back. That's my goal for you. So hit the link below if you want healing. That's it. I'm done blabbing. I'm now done with my boredom as well, so I'm going to move on and do other things today. Thank you so much. And yeah, if I've hurt anybody's feelings, know that it's coming from a place of wanting to be helpful and healing, and I hope you find that. I wish you guys all the best. You're welcome to come on to my other channel for the live guided interdimensional meditation. A lot of powerful stuff happening over there. And whatever you do, I wish you all the best, and I'll see you whenever I see you. Take care.